Sometimes you write a title to be informative, other times it's to catch people's attention. When reviewing 99 Boxes, Payday 3's latest revealed heist, I just don't think you have any other choice. So, thank you for clicking on this video regardless. It seems music-themed heist names are the way we're going for this one, so you can expect more interesting puns along the way. I'm still coming to you direct from Gamescom, where I've been lucky enough to have a hands-on play session with this new heist, which completely blindsided me as I thought we'd be rocking out with the art gallery and branch bank heist again. First of all, the entire Gamescom experience has been phenomenal. The event is brilliantly put together, and I've been given the opportunity to talk to Payday 3 devs and designers extensively, which has been an honour. I'll be releasing the full Gamescom experience video shortly, but for now, I'm going to give you all the juice on Ice-T's first contracted heist in Payday 3. Beyond what you will have already seen within the trailer, what first stood out to me was the heavy atmosphere and impressive surrounding skyline of this heist, which takes place in the dead of night. The lighting and environmental artists have gone above and beyond to turn the highly industrial setting of the New Jersey dockyard into a real visual treat of a heist. Personally, I see this as much more of a loud heist than a stealth one, although both approaches are completely valid. I've just found the shipping yard in particular to be this perfect arena to really enjoy Payday 3's evolved combat system from within. At times, it feels like a hectic COD 4 match of shipment, and then at others, the tactical elements of the gunplay come to the forefront, with verticality being very much on display with the rows of containers to parkour around. So, let's first get into the heist flow to give you a better idea of how this one plays out. Starting off unmasked, as we have with all heists so far, you'll find yourself in the car park of the warehouse, a public area wedged between two private ones. This gives you the opportunity to plan a route of attack, with open areas to stay mask off for longer, or slightly more advantageous routes in that would require you to mask up immediately. Starting off with the pure loud approach, this is by far the easiest section of the heist. Even if you go loud immediately, it's very possible to get most of the objectives done here during the initial negotiation phase, although keep in mind, this heist being set at 4 AM means there are hardly any civilians on the map, so you might want to be careful with how you utilize them. In any case, all you have to do is locate the shipping van for the advanced technological components we're stealing and set up some liquid nitrogen to keep it nice and cool for transportation. Unfortunately, in the modern Payday 2 style, this is just something you're told to find independently, and eventually if you struggle for too long, it'll be marked on your heads-up display. I still think this is not the best way to execute search and use objectives, as the only time they're really difficult or time-consuming is on your first attempt, but I'm not surprised by its implementation here, and it is just a minor and personal gripe. The second objective is to find and hack a computer, which again will require some guesswork for you to locate around the warehouse offices, spawning in one of two locations. This will tell you exactly where the two Wixia Corporation containers with the stored components are located. From there, you simply have to find the marked zipline and bag to take the aerial route directly into the shipping area where the real heist begins. One nice thing though is that all those prior objectives can be completed in any order, allowing full teams to get really efficient with it and breeze through this initial section of the heist. But from playing alongside heisters that aren't familiar with the franchise, this was also where the greatest amount of objective confusion seemed to pile up. My perspective is that once you start to consider why the gang are doing certain things, it gets a lot easier to rationalize how exactly to do them as well. Also, a bit like with the interior section of SCB, this one is much easier when within the cover of the warehouse, with SWATs tending to funnel in from simple to hold down entrances and being particularly cautious around the worker civs you should have taken inside. Things do seriously heat up though once you zipline your way across to the second shipping yard section. Here, the first challenge is to actually work out where the correct container is, and again, Payday 3 does an excellent job using contextual clues for this, requiring you to look out for signposts and read directions from numerical markings on the floor. There are more than just the two Wixia containers within the field, with all the others offering additional bags of loot should you seek them out, but also making it a little bit hard to locate the crates we're actually tasked to find. Eventually, you should come across the correct ones, which can be spotted from a distance due to their QR seal, at which point Bile is called to go grab the thermite. I love the multi-level design of this section and think it is quite fun setting up and parkouring from crate to crate whilst trying not to stay out in the open for too long. To access some of them, you even need to roll forward a forklift, although it does seem that driving has been done away with for the time being. However, once you find the loot container, having to wait for Bile to drop the thermite does really slow things down. I understand why this is the case, but it does feel slightly like padding to avoid the heist being too short or too easy, especially on normal difficulty where this downtime really messes with the pacing of the heist. My solution here would be to have Bile drop both bags of thermite at once, as that would actually create a few gameplay decisions for you and your team, encouraging you to split up and share the workload, which of course creates risk and brings cloakers firmly into the game. In any case, as it stands, after Bile has finally dropped the first bag, you can set Thermite up on the lock and force entry to the container. That's not all though, as there's an interior security system that requires you to stand in specific locations for enough time to hack in. This is a very GTFO style system that I find works fairly well to force you to explore all of the parkour options on this heist, and often forces you out of cover, making you consider options like human shields to make this section safer on harder difficulties. Once enough of these have been hacked, you will finally have access to the components. It's funny to me that these are just described as high-tech components or degradable devices, but whatever the hell they're supposed to be, they are a completely unique loot type, being the first ever to lose value and enter different states depending on how quickly you're able to get them to the secure location. In all my time playing it, I wasn't able to get it there without some minor degradation, but I was wearing the heaviest armor and certainly not taking the optimal route, so I am told it is completely possible to get it there in time. Plus, there's apparently an asset which extends that duration, meaning you won't have to haul ass quite as much. I like the concept behind degrading loot as it forces the player to really consider the heist state before deciding to grab a bag, and on the run back, it does make zappers and cloakers more likely to succeed in stunning you, as you're obviously so focused on just getting from A to B. What I would like to see though is some way to prepare this objective within the heist. You know, a shortcut you can work to unlock, for example, to reward the more patient players, because as it stands, I didn't really feel like it was forcing me to make any sort of decision I wouldn't make when carrying normal loot most of the time. Once back in the van, you'll spot a second component slot, meaning you need to head back and do this all over again. As I mentioned earlier, I would like these two objectives to run parallel with one another, even if you had to add more stages to unlock the containers, because as it stands, you're essentially doing the same thing twice, just in slightly different locations. And whilst this heist's sensational map design does a lot of heavy lifting here, being my favourite combat location in Payday 3 so far, it can feel like a lot of waiting around for nothing, without as many active objectives as we're used to, unless you're going for an all-loot run. Once you've repeated all those above processes and have secured the second device, it's just time to set up for the escape. Consistently, one of my favourite Payday 3 tendencies is to just add more context and sense to the through line of any heist. Ever asked yourself how the Payday gang lose a pursuing police force? Well, Payday 3 is answering that question, as we set up a spike strip to prevent the cops from pursuing the massive van, and with that, escape becomes available at last. And that's exactly how the heist plays out in Loud, but stealth does vary up the gameplay quite a lot, despite sticking to generally similar objectives. In this stealth run I recorded off stream, the first thing I did was go after this guard to hack his phone for the QR code required to silently access the containers. This objective needs you to be really close to him, meaning I found the best bet was to allow myself to be caught and removed from the premises whilst continuing the hack silently. It's crucial you pick up these codes early on, even though the game doesn't tell you to, as otherwise you'll need to backtrack for them later. Once again, you'll need to locate the liquid nitrogen as well as the upstairs PC, but doing so will be a lot trickier in stealth as the roles have been reversed, and the close quarters warehouse is actually where a lot of the difficulty can be found. I really had to lean on my ability to hack cameras here, as there's no way to get into the security room until you progress further on harder difficulties. Once you've found these things, you will be forced to mask up in order to climb over and grab the zipline, meaning it's not possible to do this entire thing in casing mode this time around. Once into the courtyard though, you'll want to try and seek out the blue keycard for the cameras, which I wasn't actually able to find, before locating the containers and scanning your way in. Again, the layout of the map here is really interesting to play around in stealth too. This area is very densely populated with guards, so you're going to want to hang on to some of your radio charges as it's very possible to hide bodies within the crates. Again, the location hack objective is used in stealth, which will force you to fully explore the area and take some risks to complete, although I didn't find it to be the most involved of objectives in stealth. Once in though, the loot still needs to be rushed back to the van as quickly as possible, which is where the degradable element of the loot becomes really interesting. In stealth, this mechanic is going to make you rush and panic and potentially slip up, even requiring a bit more mantling to break out of the yard. I found myself dragging a body and answering a radio whilst the components I was stealing melted on the floor, which elicited the sort of panic reaction I'm sure the devs were hoping for when they designed it like this. All good fun though, as once again you'll need to head back and do the exact same thing with a second QR code. Unfortunately for me, it was where I ran out of remaining radios and ended up activating a search upon taking down this guard, which did break stealth in the end, but I'm told the heist ends in a very similar way regardless, just without the need for the spike trap. Overall, I think they nailed the atmosphere for stealth, and I'm a big fan of having to actually hack moving targets on the map in order to complete essential tasks, but I'm a little bit surprised the objectives remain so similar throughout Loud and Stealth. What I would say is, if you can stealth up to the point where you input the QR codes, you will save a ton of time, as waiting for the thermite in Loud is well worth avoiding. but even though I'm not a major fan of all the objectives in this heist, I do love the way the map is designed and laid out, and probably had the most fun I've ever had with Payday 3, running around the containers in close quarters with this awesome Moscone build, popping everything in sight. One minor gripe to mention though is that sometimes it feels like you should be able to make more jumps than you actually can on this heist, which feels more dissonant in Payday 3, where there's greater vertical movement, so when you do hit invisible walls, it's actually quite jarring compared to Payday 2. Overall, this heist ranges anywhere from about 13 minutes to 30 minutes for my first attempt, but I would say it's on the shorter side once you know what you're doing. It's a very traditional Payday heist with a top-notch setting, cool concept and really well executed combat feel, with the yard full of exploding barrels to add even more cinematic quality. It's not necessarily an instant classic like I think you'll find Art Gallery to be, but I'm willing to bet it will be one of my go-to build testing heists in Payday 3 upon release. Obviously, I'll need more time with it, but it has been an honour and privilege to play it at Gamescom. The game is running brilliantly, looks excellent on the large monitors we have in the booth, and has been insanely popular and well received, with up to 4-hour queues at certain times of the day. I'm still quietly confident that the gameplay side of Payday 3 is kinda in the bag at the moment, so we just have to hold out hope that the game's handled properly from a business perspective above all else. No more Payday 3 news for me to share as of yet, but I expect we still have a few more exciting surprises in store in the coming weeks. 4 more to go. Take care, and I'll see you soon in the next video. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.